The following is a production of Medfield TV.
Welcome to Simply Legal. I'm your host, Geralyn Warren, longtime Medfield resident and practicing attorney here in Medfield. Each month, I present a topic that I know the viewers find not just interesting, but also useful. Today's topic, Social Security claiming strategies, I know the viewers will find very interesting since the law changed in November of 2015. And I am so fortunate to have with me today Robert Clower, who is president of Clower Wealth Management, to talk to us about the changes and what options we may now have. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Geralyn. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Before you begin, do you want to just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and about your practice?
Sure. I go by Bob, so thank you for inviting me and saying that. I'm a Medfield resident as well. My wife and I have been here for 16 years. We've got 3 daughters who are in the Medfield, all in Medfield High. So, as we like to joke, that'll be exciting when all 3 are in college for 2 years. But we really do love the community and the folks here, so we've been very happy. I've had my own practice for 25 years. I've had my own company for about 15. And in fact, I had an office near yours about 10 years ago. My focus is working with retirees primarily, or what I say, folks within 5 to 10 years, certainly. And a big part of it is retirement planning, asset protection. And I come from a family of lawyers, but I'm not one, so that's why I've teamed up with folks like yourself, because I realize the importance of the legal planning. But the financial landscape is I find just fascinating, but very complicated. And we're seeing these type of tax law changes constantly, and many of my clients are really having a hard time keeping up with it. So I think it's very important to be able to educate the public about what happens, and particularly the Social Security change that you mentioned. So that's a little bit about my background.
Yeah. I definitely think today is very important for the viewers to know about the changes that occurred, because it's almost like you and I had been talking before the filming about the fact that the change happened without many people even knowing about it or talking about it. So I think it'd be great if you could just explain to the viewers what happened in November 2015 when that new budget deal was signed into law by President Obama.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. That's exactly right, Geralyn. I mean, it was November 2nd, 2015. President Obama put this law into place. And as you said, many of the lawmakers really sort of secretly talked about this and pushed it through without really getting the feedback of frankly, millions of consumers who I'm sure would want to have a say on this. And so some of the really popular Social Security claiming strategies today, if I can just go into that a little bit.
That would be great.
So one of the really popular ones is what we call the file and suspend. The full retirement age for Social Security is 66 years old, and that's approximately $32,000 a year. So what we've seen prior to this budget deal is folks who are that age, the primary earner, would file and suspend their benefits and wait till the maximum age of age 70. Mm-hmm. And the full retirement, and the non-income producing spouse could start collecting spousal benefits at age 66 to 70, and that amount could be up to $16,000 a year. So that's a nice little window that people have been able to take advantage of. And as a result of the primary earner waiting till age 70, they end up getting a 32% increase. So instead of $32,000 a year that they could have gotten at 66 years old, it's now $42,000.
So it was growing during that time.
Absolutely, it was growing. So that really was a terrific strategy that a lot of people took advantage of. The problem now is starting April 2nd of this year, that's going away. So if you were born 1954 or after, you're not going to have those entitlements. In other words, if you were to say, well, gee, yeah, that fits our situation, Bob. My husband was going to file and suspend his benefits, for example, if you're female, and I was going to start collecting, they're going to have to wait till that primary earner is age 70 before they're going to be able to get the spousal benefits. And in that 4-year period of time, it's not increasing. So really, when we look at that, Geralyn, that's a $64,000 household loss in that same example that someone could have taken advantage of. So interestingly enough, when this law was shoved into place, as I like to say, we sent out a weekly email to all our clients immediately, letting them know about this, because of course many of the public didn't really hear about it. And one of my clients did call me, who's 68 years old, primary earner, and his wife is not working, and he said, gee, my wife was waiting. We did exactly that, Bob. I suspended my benefits, my wife was waiting, but now it seems like at 68, even though she's past 2 years, she should still collect. I said, absolutely. Yeah. That's $32,000 that you're entitled to, but the key is you've got to do this now by April 2nd to take advantage of that. So I think a lot of people, Geralyn, are just not really understanding how this will affect them.
Now, does it only impact the people that are born from 1954 on? So the people that are born before that, will they still be able to take advantage of these?
They still will, but that's the thing, is they have, that's exactly right. So if you were 65 and a half years old by October 29th of 2015, you still can do this, but you've got to do it before May 1st. You've got to do it before May 1st. So in the example I just gave you, that gentleman, I said, look, you or at least your wife needs to go down to the Social Security office to take advantage of this, and your window is not very big now. You have, as I said, till May 1st to do it. So that's a window to folks in that situation. Born 1954 and after, a little bit different situation, but I think it's still crucial to really try to understand what these options are, because it was interesting. We were talking at your office last year. AARP and the Financial Planning Association conducted a survey. Millions of consumers, 77% had indicated how important it is to them to maximize their Social Security benefits. Yet when questioned further, about 9% said they really fully understood all the implications of Social Security. This was before the tax law change. So, many financial advisors, if you ask them, well, what do your clients say? Same type of analysis, 85% of the financial advisors said, yeah, this is crucial when we look at the overall income planning for retirees, are trying to maximize those Social Security benefits. Yet even the financial advisors are saying probably 1% of our clients really fully understand it. That is a huge amount of people who just aren't understanding what they're entitled to and what they can do.
So what options are there now that they're taking this away from us for the people that are born after 1954?
Well, that's a good question. So what we've developed in our office is what we call a risk blueprint, retirement income survival kit. We look at the risks that really all retirees are going to face, Geralyn, and that's risks like stock market risk. I think in the first 2 weeks of this year, everyone would agree with that. Probably the most volatile two and a half weeks we've seen to start a year off ever. But also, what are some other risks? Longevity risks, healthcare risks. We talk about that with some personal family situations. And sequence of returns. That's the other thing. We always look at, when folks are getting ready to retire, think about the poor folks who retired just before 2008, when we saw the worst stock market in 70 years. So those folks who say, great, I've reached retirement, maybe have a pension, probably not, maybe they're looking at Social Security, but if they start drawing on their maybe 401ks or IRAs, and the market is swooning down, that's devastating to a portfolio. So we look at all sorts of income, guaranteed income sources. Social Security is certainly one of them, but again, it's important to understand how does this new law really affect you. And if you are eligible for the old rules, let's make sure in this 3 to 4 month window we take advantage of that. But yeah, we'll certainly look at the whole global aspect of it and make sure that we really plan out that folks are going to live into their mid to late 80s because statistically that's the case. So that's what we're referring to as longevity, and there's so many things that can happen between now and then with taxes and inflation and health, as I mentioned. So it's really important to look at not only Social Security, but all sorts of income sources.
And some of my clients, as we were talking, are just on Social Security, so that's why this is so important for the viewers to understand what's happening, and if they can take advantage of it, that they better take advantage of it before May.
It really is, and one of my clients I spoke to yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we were talking about this. Oh, I'm going to be talking to you about Social Security. She said, "Gee, you know what? I'm divorced. But I was married for over 10 years, and I'm coming up to age 62. I heard there might be some benefits that I might be able to get from my ex-spouse." And the answer is, yeah, she's right. There are. But so she knew a little bit about it, but she really didn't know what action steps she could take. So that was a timely conversation where I could say, you know what, this is a good time frame for you to really look into this more, and here we can talk about how you can take advantage of that, because I just think this affects millions and millions of people. When you look at statistically right now, Geralyn, in 1965 there were 4 workers for every retiree. 4 workers. Today, or certainly 2015 anyway, which I don't think it's changed, it's now coming down to 2.7.
That's what I read.
2.7. So when we project out another 20 years, 2.1 workers for every retiree. I mean, it's just not plausible. And they're talking about in 2020 that we'll start dipping into the principal or the trust of Social Security without any further legislative changes. 2033, they're talking about it depleting. And now you're talking about a 25% reduction in Social Security. So you're right, you're mentioning, and I've got some clients the same thing. Social Security only is really their only main source. So what are these folks going to do if they live long enough, or certainly other folks coming up behind them, looking at a potential 25% reduction? And as you know, costs in Medfield, Massachusetts, or Massachusetts in general, or the Northeast, tend to be going this way, not that way. It's expensive to live here. So how are we going to keep up with that? And that's what when we talk about inflation, that really could be a very devastating situation for many of these folks.
So what are some of the things that you might offer to the retirees as far as dealing with this?
So one area, and certainly not the only one, is guaranteed income streams through annuities. It could be single premium immediate annuities where there's no stock market risk at all. And what came out last year, interestingly, in July of 2015, is what they call qualified longevity annuity contracts. That's for specifically for retirement income. As you know, people with IRAs or 401ks, retirement plans, 403bs, they must start taking a distribution. Yeah, that's right, RMD, required minimum distribution at 70 and a half.
Right.
Why? Because Uncle Sam said, hey, I allowed you to take advantage of pre-tax money, putting that money away, letting it grow tax deferred, and now it's 70 and a half. I want my pound of flesh. So you must take a distribution each year. Well, now Uncle Sam said, okay, we'll allow this. You can put up to $125,000 in what they call a QLAC, Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract, where you can defer taking the payments on that all the way to age 85.
And the cutoff is $120,000?
125 is, the rule is that you must have up to $500,000 of retirement income.
Okay.
So that, retirement accounts, IRAs, 403bs. So you must have that level.
Right.
So this is for people, admittedly, with high retirement plan balances. But people who are in that situation say, yeah, I only want to take the required minimum. I don't need more than that. Or more importantly, I don't want to pay more taxes. This is a neat instrument that they could say, you know what, yeah, hey, there's longevity in our family. We think we will make it into mid to late 80s or beyond. Maybe I'll carve out a portion of this, put it in this qualified longevity annuity contract, and I'll start collecting, at age 80 or 75. So the advantage is there's a certain number of years they're not paying additional taxes. Now, again, at some point they will have to draw on that, but then it will last the rest of their life, and whatever the unused premium is, in other words, if they didn't end up withdrawing all that they put in.
Excuse me,
Sure.
Is there a penalty if they have to draw on that before the time?
No, you can make a decision. You can change it up to 5 years prior that you can get into. So if you said, yeah, let's start at age 80, and then suddenly they say, gee, I think I am going to need this income. They can make that one-time decision and say, okay, let's start it at age 75 instead.
All right.
So again, that's one idea. For non-IRA accounts, the single premium annuity is another.
I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, so that's certainly one aspect. Other aspects are we like things like professionally managed, maybe exchange traded funds. Low cost instruments, no commissions, no transaction fees, where you can draw money on whatever you want, whenever you want it. We do caution people though to say, hey, that's not guaranteed. So you are in the market there. So even if it's conservative, you can run out. Whether you're in mutual funds or stocks, it's similar to that. But what we like about it is the costs are so much lower. That's the other thing is, oftentimes we'll look at a portfolio and say, gee, do you realize the internal costs that you're paying here? To whether it's be high cost mutual funds that you don't see those internal costs, or maybe a higher than normal advisory fee. So costs and fees matter, commission, all that matters. And although those instruments may not be guaranteed, if we can minimize costs and risks, then I think our chance of income lasting is certainly better.
The longevity of
That's
the income
right.
lasting.
But I really like the diversified approach, Geralyn. I really do, because it just makes sense. Not all eggs in one basket.
Right.
And so when we do that risk blueprint, we'll say, hey, here are the non-guaranteed income sources. It's not guaranteed, but at least we think this may improve where your money is today. Now, here are the guaranteed sources of income. So Social Security, again, hopefully, right? Pension, government pension, certainly, but my wife was in a situation when she worked right out of college where a 100-year-old consulting company doing fabulously, they went out of business. So
that's happening more and more.
It was crazy. I mean, she was telling me there were maintenance workers who had well over $1 million in their pension. You say, fantastic, they're going to be set for life. Well, not if a company then goes belly up. So she had gotten out, right before that happened, and luckily, 80% of her pension was saved because it was not invested in the company. So that's the new world. That's the world we're in, Geralyn. Is very few of these folks have these guaranteed pensions. So many of them, they're staring at Social Security and saying, that's really all I can count on at this point. My CDs, we don't think those rates are going up very, very high anytime soon. 1%, maybe a little bit more, but taxable.
I know any client that has a 3%, I say leave it.
Absolutely.
Like,
well, 3% today is
like,
wow. If the banks are offering that today, I think you'd see lines outside. So I agree. If someone's getting that kind of fixed interest rate, that's terrific in this environment, no question.
The other thing you and I were kind of talking about that people don't even think about is like capital gains.
Right.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about how that can affect people as far as their investment portfolio?
Well, it's the same thing with, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people have mutual funds, and which many of them are very good. We like low cost mutual funds, but what's happened after 2008, many of these fund families were able to accelerate some of their losses, so the capital gains distributions really weren't very significant. Well, now we're seeing very well-known fund families, even with low costs, paying out huge capital gains distributions. I mean, last year we saw some as high as 10% of the portfolio. So if you had, for example, $100,000 in mutual funds, you might have seen a $10,000 capital gain distribution. So for many people, they say, hey, I really didn't want that. I certainly don't want to pay the taxes on it. And now with the new Obama tax, the capital gains rate is as high as 23.8%. So taxes really matter. They really do. And the folks who have CDs, things like that, hey, I get it. I get it. You've got the safety, you've got the FDIC, the old Will Rogers saying, I'm more interested in the return of my money than on. I totally get that. But when we look at 1% or less at taxed at ordinary income rates, and then your Social Security benefits may be affected. That's the other thing. Social Security benefits are not necessarily tax-free. They say, gee, between all these taxes, capital gains, ordinary income, what really is my net return? So capital gains really matter. And we'll look at oftentimes people say, well, what can we do? And that's why we work with folks like you on the legal side, and we'll say, well, let's look at some of the legal and financial strategies. One instrument.
Sometimes it's like doing a trust. Or,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We love the charitable remainder trust. Now, again, that's where the experts like you come in. We're not the practitioners, but we can say, well, here's the concept. You take a highly appreciated asset, could be a second home, could be a stock, could be a mutual fund, but particularly we've seen this in the stock market. People are nervous, and they should be, with the extreme volatility that we're seeing over the last 6 to 9 months. And here's the thing, Geralyn, that's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. I'd love to say, here's the forecast, this way only. Yeah. We can't say that, nobody can. But what we can say is, I think we're in for a lot of volatility.
They said oil wasn't going to go below 29; it was 27.
That's right. That's right. So that one always is a head scratcher. I look at it and say, I'm filling up 2 to 3 times a week, and I say, this is good. Hey, more money in my pocket. I'm heating my home in Medfield on oil, and that I'm saving money. But the big corporations aren't as profitable, so that's bad on Wall Street. Yeah. So that's the reality. But we'll look at highly appreciated assets and we say, here's the thing. If you were to sell that now, whether it's a stock because you're nervous to be in the market or a second home or whatever it may be, your capital gains rates could be as high as 23.8%. People don't believe me until I show them the charts. And
it's something that I always have to bring up to their attention too when they come in to see me, and I talk about capital gains. I'm like, you have to understand that even now with the extra Obama tax, that you could be looking at 24%.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And people think like, estate tax. I'm not in that situation. Right. Well, good. But one, if you live in Massachusetts,
$1 million.
$1 million, which that's a lot of money. But throw in a home, throw in a retirement account,
life insurance,
life insurance if not properly owned.
Right.
That's the other thing. What we see all the time, and we'll recommend irrevocable trusts for folks like you.
Crummy.
Absolutely, but yeah, we'll look at things like that and say, look, if you were to sell this yourself, you're right, it could be up to $24,000, 24% of the gain. Instead, here's an idea. Again, it's not for everybody, but by gifting it to the capital gains trust, charitable remainder trust, charitable remainder trust. Now the trust can sell that asset. No capital gains taxes. That person can get an income for the rest of their life, whether they're single or married. In fact, we've done it with. I've done it with a client who was 89 years old recently, who had a huge amount of stock that he was nervous about. And we set it up for not only he and his wife, but also for a certain period of time for their children. So that was kind of neat. But now they can get significant income tax deductions, income stream for the rest of their life, and it's out of their estate for estate tax purposes. So again, it's not for everybody, but I think a lot of people, they hear terms like, charitable remainder trust, and they think that's only for uber wealthy people.
I was going to say that, I know.
Or they think, hey, charity starts at home, and I want to make sure, sure I give to.
It's a tax.
That's right. Sure I give to the charities that we really believe in, but charity starts at home, and I want to help my kids. Well, absolutely, you should. But many of my clients that do this, sure, they like the idea that they can decide, or their heirs can decide what charities will get this. But they like knowing, hey, I'm getting some significant income tax benefits here, economic benefits. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of this. This is an economic benefit for the client. And guess what? By the way, not such a bad feeling, is it though, that knowing that a charity or charities of your choice someday will get at least up to 5% of what you've given. That's the threshold. And oftentimes it could be more than that. So I agree with you. I think taxes, sure, estate taxes, if you're in that bracket, that's important to make sure, especially Massachusetts, as you know, you don't get that $1 million automatically. You have to do estate planning to get that.
That's right.
On the feds, if you're in that Uber bracket, they give you the $5.45 million automatically. Right. Massachusetts does not.
Right.
So if you're in that bracket, you've got to see someone like yourself do that legal planning. But what if you're above that? And like you said, we see all the time people with old life insurance policies, and I might say, hey, that's a good plan, or maybe we can do better. I don't know, but either way, you shouldn't own it because what could happen is not only is it's income tax free, not necessarily estate tax free, but also there could, if it's a permanent policy with cash value, and there's a healthcare situation, the state may force them, or the nursing home may force them to start cannibalizing that. Yeah, absolutely, and now that policy could blow up on them. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that we'll do is we'll work in conjunction with someone like yourself, Geralyn, in saying we're really going to look at this globally. I mean, let's start with income and retirement planning, but we like to look at what we say 10,000 feet above to say, look at, we see multiple exposures here. Now, hey, Rome's not built in a day. I know, as you probably do, if we sit down with our clients and say, here's 10,000 things to do, they'll probably do none. It's too overwhelming.
Right.
But if we can say, let's prioritize. Let's attack the low-hanging fruit here. Social Security, if you're right there, that's one of them. Retirement income, that's one of them. But also, let's look big picture, because if you're not in that big estate tax situation, that's great, but your heirs could really get hammered, or you could, with some of these other capital gains taxes that people just, I just don't think they fully understand.
And the point you were making is, a lot of times when I do an estate plan, it's like saying to them, okay, I'm giving you the documents, but you got to use them.
Absolutely.
You know, they can't just be unfunded and just out there. You know, that's why working with someone like yourself, you know, you need to work with a financial advisor when you're doing an estate plan so that you can maximize the documents and use them. And, you know, I hate to give someone a document and then just have it be left unfunded, because what's the point of it, you know? So.
No, I agree. I see that all the time. And it's a corny expression, but we like to say, as a financial advisor, we're sort of the quarterback on the team. I want to be, if someone's working with you, Geralyn, I want to at least get a phone call to you and say, hey, I'm working with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, for example, and they said they have this wonderful documents, but when I asked them, you know, who owns your brokerage account, or is the trust funded, they look at me with sort of deer in the headlights. So I know practitioners like you are taking that extra step to make sure they're funded. But that's something we work with all the time with our clients and say, hey, if that wasn't the case, okay, not a big deal. We'll make sure it is funded. You know, if you have a brokerage account, even if we're not managing it, we will help you do that without a fee to it. Because you're right. It's, why'd you do all this, you know, great legal planning if you didn't fully fund it? And I think, you know, that's a mistake we see all the time. I think folks feel like, okay, I've paid the expert estate planning attorney, I can do it myself, and it doesn't completely get done. So that is crucial. It really is.
And one of the things sometimes that's an option too for paying estate tax is just getting an insurance policy so that they can end up using that to pay the tax.
It is, and that's really, you know, we look at life insurance today as really an alternative investment. Is it a great investment? No, it isn't. But many of the products today, they're guaranteed to age 120. The underwriting is so much more sophisticated than it was, you know, years ago, because they're testing better than they ever did before. So we've got clients in their 70s and 80s who are buying life insurance. Now, I'm not saying it's cheap, but if they're in fairly good health, the insurance companies realize, hey, you know, when you get into your 70s and 80s, even 60s, there's probably some health conditions. So you maybe not getting the top preferred rate, but if you're getting a standard non-smoker rate, it's pretty competitively priced. And again, we'll look at it and say, hey, from a leveraging standpoint, if it's held by an irrevocable trust, not only is this going to be income tax-free for your heirs, providing this liquid asset, but also estate tax-free, and by the way, also creditor-proof. And that's why, you know, I love working with folks like yourself, where you're saying, hey, you're setting things up for, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith in their lifetime, but also it's going to kick in when they pass on to their heirs, where there's inherited trust set up that's protecting their heirs as well. Because let's face it, Geralyn, you know, my generation, the boomers, hate to say it, you know, I've been married 20 years now, and it's going well, but 51.3 of us are getting divorced in our age bracket. And I'll joke with my retiree clients and say, you know, for your age, it's going up to, I think, 7% divorces. So the point is, when we look at, you know, the terrible Ds, you know, divorce, debt, disability, things like that, it really is crucial, I think, to do this whole estate and financial planning. And many people are very good at doing their own investments and their own type of planning, but I think having another advisor, a second opinion, someone who's been doing this for 25 years in a niche market like retirees.
And it is a niche market.
It really is.
You know,
it
just
really
like elder
is.
law or whatever, it's a
Absolutely.
niche market.
It is, and at first I thought, you know, gee, well, I had less white hair 25 years ago, even though I think at 30 I was starting to gray a little. But I thought, like, you know, well, retirees listen to me, and my feeling is I think they will if you can show that, you know, there's reason to trust you. And you're competent, you know what you're doing, and you say, if I'm going to do this, then you do it. But I also look at that demographic and say, gee, you know, the baby boomers right now, the oldest is just turned 70 this past year, 10,000 of them are turning 65 every day. 10,000. Yeah. So Massachusetts, you know, we'll get our fair share of those folks who are saying, okay, yeah, I'm healthy, I'm viable, I want to go and do stuff, but do I have enough assets to make it? Because I am looking at that 65-year-old, and I'm saying, believe it or not, especially a married couple, statistically over 83%, one of you is going to be here 20 years and beyond.
I was going to say that.
That's a big number. That's a big number. So, do we have enough to do it and for your lifestyle? Let's customize your own blueprint that does it. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed and this is how it's going to be, but that's the beauty of working with folks, year after year, is saying, hey, you're right, things have changed. Taxes have changed. Laws have changed. Let's reevaluate. Let's revise that blueprint. Family situations have changed. Let's see what we need to do to pivot and make sure we're on track.
So before we end today, though, could you just go over again with the Social Security claiming strategies, how it's changed, just so that the public understands it again, just because we've talked about so many topics.
Yeah, we have.
And I just want to make sure that they understand the changes that occurred as of November.
Yep. So the folks who were 65 and a half years old at October 29th of 2015, they're still eligible by May 1st of this year, where if the primary income earner has filed and suspended their benefits. In other words, the full retirement age is age 66, with the full benefit being $32,000. The person who files and suspends says, I'm going to wait till I'm 70 years old, and then by doing that, I'll be able to collect up to $42,000, which is a 30% increase. In the meantime, the non-income earning spouse, who could be 66 years old, says, you know what, I'm going to claim my spousal benefits. And that's up to $16,000 a year. So that's between 66 and 70, that non-income earning spouse can earn another $64,000. And then the primary income earner can earn $42,000. That is a tremendous strategy. And that's been very popular, and everyone thought, oh, that's here to stay for forever. Well, again, on November 2nd, 2015, Obama passes this new budget deal that says, well, no, that's being taken off the table. So anyone born 1954 and on can no longer have that same claiming strategy. So if you're 66 years old, that same example of a non-income earning spouse, and you're going to have to wait until age 70 when the primary income earner, if they're going for the full maximum age of 70, they're going to have to wait before they collect a dime. That's $64,000 that's off the table. That's a big number. That's a big number. And now as a result of that, Geralyn, they're saying the break-even point used to be, age 81, 82, husband and wife. Now it's being pushed back 6 years to now the break-even point will be now 87 and 88. So it's crucial for folks in that bracket saying, which way do I go? This is not the time to say, my parents did it this way, or my friends and my relatives, and I heard this and I read this somewhere. This is where you sit down with a professional, whoever, if you're already working with someone who's very knowledgeable, wonderful. You sit down with that person and say, look, I need to really understand these tax law changes that, again, were kind of done secretively. Lawmakers push through. We've heard that one before, without getting a consensus on the public. But this affects millions and millions of people. So it's very, very important. And I think because it's so new, that's 2 months ago. There's been some publicity, but the clients that I've talked to had no knowledge of this. So we'll probably start doing some workshops on it, Geralyn, just because that window is, we have to now in May 1st for the folks that are still eligible. Take advantage of it. So and there's a lot who are in that bracket. So we want to make sure those folks are taking advantage of it. And then for the folks who are 1954 and on born, we want to say, okay, let's look at your options. Let's look at your whole situation, and we can try to help you decide what strategies are best for you.
Well, Bob, this was great, and thank you so much for being a guest today. And I know that the viewers will agree with me, this was not just interesting, but very useful. And to my viewers, remember, it's simply legal.
Medfield TV, community shows.